Hey guys, welcome back to Last Stand Media. Right now we are going to be reacting to the definitive guide to debunking every January 6th lie. This will be a smaller segment out of the larger video from Stephen Crowder, and we will begin.
Told the protesters to be peaceful. Here's one example.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
The Capitol.
And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity.
So here's one thing. There's the things that we laugh about. He's actually being very careful there with that speech. He's like, and maybe not support all of them. Maybe, right? Maybe, could be. But then he says, lawfully slated, peacefully and he made sure to say, follow the law.
Yeah.
And he said, peacefully and patriotically. Now, you may disagree with him. You may think he's a quack because you think this is the safest and most secure election in history, and many Americans do. That's fine. The problem is the lie to say that he encouraged any violence or even, I'll take it a step further, unlawfulness.
Right. Or even that he wanted that to be the outcome. Because he's not trying to stage a coup. That wasn't the whole point of this. The whole point for Donald Trump was, in his opinion, laws were broken. States did not legally certify their slate of electors, and so therefore it needs to be sent back so it can be corrected so the law can be followed. That was his entire argument the entire time. Right? Because he still had the nuclear launch codes at that moment. If he wanted a coup, he could have done it.
I would never stage a coup. A coup is for doves. Or
they go cuckoo.
If it's Steve Bannon's wife, stage an oink.
Isn't that right, Moo?
You want to move to decertify, right?
The whole hearing is just insulting his wife.
It's like Don Rickles. Why don't you go to Alaska and step on a rake, huh? She says, huh?
Yeah, hockey puck. I don't even know what that means.
And by the way, if these are rioters and insurrectionists, and it's 9/11 the sequel, they accomplished nothing. The election was certified that exact same day, to be clear.
I do remember the speech they gave before 9/11 that was like this, to peacefully fly the planes into the buildings.
Yes.
Patriotically.
Yes, patriotically.
Yeah, the QAnon jihadi, we all remember him.
Yeah, they were like, should we let this guy with paint and horns on the plane?
Yeah, he's totally fine.
No, it's fine. TSA just let him bring car batteries and wires.
That's how you know. That's actually a good point. That's how you know there was no coup, because when you're doing something unlawful, you typically try and disguise yourself like a terrorist.
Right.
Right. In this case, they were letting their freak flag fly because they weren't planning anything. This is the issue. It's something that got out of control, something that got out of hand for some people, a very, very small subset of people, to be clear. Okay, here's some other claims that we're making. Here's another claim. We're now, I believe, on number 3 for people who are following along. Again, the hashtag is LWCJan6th, anywhere you can get it trending. If you're on Instagram, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, please do, because we want people to reference. This is your reference guide for all things January 6th related. They took it off. They decided to leave. We're not. Another claim they're going to make is that Donald Trump, even though, okay, let's go with this, he said make your voices heard peacefully, but he didn't condemn the insurrectionists. He didn't condemn the hooligans strongly enough or quickly enough. This is something else that they were going to trot back out today because they did it last time.
My question is exactly that. That it sounds like you, from the very onset of violence at the Capitol, right around 2 o'clock, were pushing for a strong statement that people should leave the Capitol. Is that right?
I was, and others were as well.
Okay. So your advice was tell people
Louis
to leave the
Vuitton
Capitol.
wallpaper.
It took over 2 hours when there were subsequent statements made, tweets put forth that in your view were insufficient. Did you continue, Mr. Cipollone, throughout the period of time up until 4/17 continue, you and others, to push for a stronger statement?
Yes.
Were you joined in that effort by Ivanka Trump?
Yes.
Eric Hershey?
Yes.
By Mark Meadows?
By the way, right after that, he slapped down a burlap sack and said, "All these letters to Santa Claus."
Yep. And they said, if you were a woman, I'd slug you.
So here's the truth. Obviously, Donald Trump did tell them to go home. Here you go, in case you didn't see it first.
Okay, we're going to go to that right now. Here's a message from President Trump.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened, where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel. But go home and go home in peace.
So a couple of things there. First, people, law and order. He just, I love law and order. Play the theme. That's People's Court. For people who are shut up.
That's Sex Crimes Division. Stop.
I hate
That's SVU, folks.
Now that's the Miami one.
We won't get fooled again. That's right. That's CSI Miami.
Why
What's
would
the-
David Carradine want to be in the Sun? Or Caruso? On the joke.
What's the Gary Sinise one? It's all Who soundtracks. But here's the thing.
Yes.
People will say, oh, yeah, but he was saying we need to be peaceful, but he was saying this election was stolen in a landslide. Read how to win friends and influence people. Look, it would have been worse if Donald Trump just came out and said, nothing happened, please go home. He needed to say, I hear you. I understand why you're upset. You have reason to be upset. You need to acknowledge that people are upset, why they're upset, and then tell them that in spite of that, this is the course of action. Have you ever had an argument with your spouse? You ever had a teenager who acts out? If you just say, do it this way because I say so, how does that work out? You always need to say, look, I understand why you might see it this way, and I think you may have some valid reasons, but this is what we have to do right now. That is actually what was necessary, and he would be damned if he did, damned if he didn't. If he just came out and said, be peaceful, they would say, oh, that wasn't enough. If he comes out and he relates to them and says, I understand why you're upset, but this is how we have to do it. Oh, look, he was saying, look, did you hear? They got mad. He said, we love you. Well, is he supposed to say, we hate you to the hundreds of thousands of protesters who were there peacefully? That's who he was talking to when he said, we love you, we hear you.
And most of the people by that point, I think, had already kind of started meandering out.
Right.
When you have
Going
to
home anyway.
You have to admit that using the Dale Carnegie, analogy, the way that, you use the tools from that book, mixed with narcissism is just beautiful.
Yes, it is.
It's just, I understand, I hear you. It was a landslide.
It's a landslide. We won. I know.
But he's right. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's endearing himself to make them know that, he understands them, but he doesn't want this to go in the direction that it looks like it could go, because in no way is that what he wanted.
And you know what, though? Donald Trump, for all of his faults, he would do this with people who opposed him as far as you, the citizens, politically. Unlike Joe Biden, who's attacked the citizens as MAGA Republicans and then walked it back.
Oh, God.
Again, it's a lie where he praised white supremacist neo-Nazis. And you know what? Maybe we can pull that clip, actually. Let's have guys in the control room pull that clip, because it's another myth I just want to hit. They keep regurgitating it. But think about what he said. He said, I'm not talking about neo-Nazis, white supremacists who should be condemned totally, but there were very fine people on both sides. That's him saying, hey, I understand you who want to take these statues down. I understand, but you can't do it this way. He would do that with Democrat voters, just not with the politicians. His problem, if you go through the entire hearing, the last hearing, if you go through the entire sequence of events, I would challenge you to find Donald Trump condemning half the country as evil.
You won't find it.
Right. No. And look, you got to understand the mood of the country at this time, too. It's like we're taking this stuff in a bit of a vacuum when they present it like, oh, these things happened and people just denied the election. No, Donald Trump ran. You guys polled him as one of the worst candidates possible to run. This was a coronation kind of tribute to Hillary Clinton. And then Donald Trump wins. And we're like, oh, okay, the media can't really be trusted. And then immediately it was, well, Donald Trump didn't win on his own. Hillary didn't really believe that he won. It was Russia that actually colluded with him to help steal the election. We come to find out that's like Facebook ads, basically. Maybe maybe tens of thousands of dollars in Facebook ads, which is not a whole lot.
There was an entire documentary on HBO called Kill Chain that said Stacey Abrams won the election because Dominion voting machines can be hacked and rigged. You can watch on HBO right now.
They were hacked live on that show, right?
Yes, to say that Stacey Abrams, who, by the way, has not conceded that election, Kill Chain, HBO. Go and watch it.
Well, then a certain group also came to to Zucker at Facebook and told them to slide it another way.
Well, yeah, no,
it's angle this
like
down.
Oh, sorry.
That's what it
happened. I just can't see your wonderful over
and over and over and over again to Donald Trump. They were trying to tear him down. The media was just complicit with everything. And so when this happens, the election happens, we all see it. We see it change in the middle of the night. We're thinking democracy is being stolen right now. Donald Trump called it. These guys are doing it. The media is carrying their water. And now we can't have a voice because if you say it, you're an election denier.
Right.
And these people are just going there to protest this happening.
Yeah,
Right.
we actually have a question from Blaze Chat about the protesters, and I've got a few videos.
Okay, sure. What's the question?
Yeah, so Luis J asks, is there evidence that the security guards let in the Gen 6 protesters?
You mean videos?
Oh, video evidence?
Yes.
Yeah, we've run that many times on the show.
Yes.
There's videographic evidence from, you know what? I will actually, before we go to the clips, remember when DVD first came out and they would say you could watch?
Go ahead and stop them there. So yeah, what do you think, man?
Well, I think that we've been enduring a coup in our country since probably about 2015, pretty obviously, when they went after Trump and used the FBI and other agencies to try to dismantle his election ambitions. And I think it continued on an actual coup within our Department of Justice throughout his entire term, and the media was complicit in it. And the January 6th was just a culmination, I think, of people wanting to go down there and show their support for the president, and that they believed that he won the election, and whether or not anyone else believed it or not, they certainly believed that he won the election. And then they went down to go ahead and have their voices heard. I mean, that's but the people's house, right? Let your voices be heard. And but the media and the establishment were desperate to undermine President Trump before he was elected and after he was elected. And especially
Even
they didn't
till
want to see
today.
him come back. So I believe that they planted in insurrectionists within that group. I think people who were really backing a coup, but was on the other side, and that they wanted violence there. And I'll tell you, in Bunkerville, Nevada, in 2014, there was a major concern I had about insurrectionist plants being put in with the people who really wanted just to keep the peace and make sure that the Bundy family weren't going to be assassinated by the Bureau of Land Management and FBI snipers that were there without warrants. And the concern was that they were going to send people in to spark a fight, and then hence you lose the peace, and then you all get killed or you get all blamed as being insurrectionists, like what happened on January 6th. And when they were just talking about having video of Capitol Police allowing the protesters, if you will, because they certainly weren't insurrectionists, the majority of them, into the Capitol building. How do you justify that? Is they're creating the crime and they're complicit in the crime if in fact it is a crime what they did.
We all know that the FBI has been doing this stuff. I mean, look at Waco, Ruby Ridge. FBI's got a pretty colorful history of doing some nonsense. I mean, even in Occupy Wall Street and You got the Tea Party, some of the Tea Party stuff, all the stuff in Trump, all the stuff still with Trump. All the stuff with the Bundys. That you just see the FBI just absolutely tattered
Did you know
with
that
colorful, interesting theory.
And Ruby Ridge is that they entrapped the family up there basically.
Yep.
And what happened is they went ahead. The FBI made a video after the siege, if you will, on the house in Ruby Ridge, and then they took Randy Weaver, who they had shot, his dead wife, who they had shot in the face carrying their baby, and their dead son, who was 13 or 14, who they had killed. It took them, the baby, and I forgot the other guy's name who was there with a friend. After they emptied them out, they made a video, a redo, if you will, of that siege, and they presented it in court, but they got busted, and they ended up lost the case,
right?
And because the FBI isn't seeking justice, and I'm not going to say every agent isn't, because that would I'm sure is untrue. But I got to tell you, there's enough of them in there that they think that whatever target that they're pointed at, it doesn't matter how they get them, that they just
right, because they're going to do the job like good soldiers, and that's
right,
the way.
Whatever.
And the problem is that's not justice. That's a military arm of whatever government regime. It's a weapon. It's a military arm for domestic.
Well, look at Strzok and Page.
Yeah,
what they were doing. I mean, and what's happening? They're not arrested. If you lie to the FBI, you go to jail.
Right.
It's a crime.
Right.
They lie to you. They lie to us. Matter of fact, they end up lying in court. They get away with it.
Right.
And the rules. I'll tell you something. If you're prosecuted by the federal government in court, the only person, if they've never been in front of the federal judge before, who doesn't know what's going on and thinks that justice may prevail, is the person who's charged, because typically their attorney, the prosecutor, and the judge, and everybody else in that courtroom who works for the government knows what the outcome's going to be. They're pretty much, they know the direction of things. And justice isn't one of the things that they seek. Lady Justice, if you've seen the statue of her, right? It's got the balance, the scales and balance, and then also a blindfold on. Because the problem is Lady Justice in our country right now does have a blindfold on. She is blind, and she doesn't even see justice. So how do you enforce justice, right? If you can't see? And they certainly can't see it. But in fact, in the scripture, Jesus says quite a few times, "You're blind, right? You would let the blind lead the blind. They both fall in the pit." Is one of the verses that he said. And here we have Lady Justice with a blindfold on. Well, no wonder we're in the pit. And what they've done right now with those January 6th people down there, they've charged. And if somebody went in there, broke a window or something, they certainly or should be charged for that. The
problem is most of that person or those people that were breaking windows were probably feds.
Or their confidential informants,
right?
That they had working for them, because they have them infiltrate to go ahead and cause the reason for the others to get arrested. And they use what's called a complex case. Is the prosecution tells the judge that, this is a complex case, and it's going to take us a long time to get this case sorted out. So for us to go to trial, because under the Constitution, you've got 60 days to go to trial.
Right.
So what and the judge 99% of the time goes along with whatever the prosecution wants in the federal cases, certainly, is declares the complex case, and then there's no limit to how long that trial can go on. There's not a limit to it. But what happens is if they're holding people without bail,
right,
which they are, a bunch of the January 6th people, if they're holding them without bail, or bail that's so high that there's no way they can meet it, which is unconstitutional,
right,
and so is no bail, is that they can hold them in there for years, which some of those guys have been in there for almost 2 years now, right?
Yep.
Or maybe over, and they have families at home that they can't take care of, they can't pay their bills, businesses that they can't get to run that have gone bankrupt or closed or what have you. Attorney fees going through the roof. Even if they have an attorney that's given it to them by the court, it's monstrously expensive to be locked up. And that doesn't mean that attorney that the judge gave them is going to be on their side,
right?
Because most of the that 97% of the cases that go before the federal court on an indictment, that those people charged are found guilty either by jury, the judge, or a plea of agreement. And a large majority of those are through plea agreement because they weigh people down.
Yeah.
60 Minutes had done a special in like 2016 or 17 just on that. And I think it was one of the southern states, Alabama or one of them. It was a state case. And they were interviewing the prosecutors. And actually what had happened is that the public defenders went on strike.
Right.
And they wouldn't take any of the high profile cases. They'd only take the little ones. And so all the whole high profile cases, people were getting released because they couldn't go to trial. And they weren't declaring them complex cases. So the cases would get thrown out, and they were trying to shine a light on what was happening. And so the interviewer said it was taken actually into this room. It was a storage facility, and there's boxes and boxes and boxes and shelves, 10, 12 feet high, full of cases. And they said, these are cases that we got to try. They go, you're kidding me. This many cases? Oh, yeah.
Right.
And so they said, so what happens? Well, they said, well, most of the people who are charged, if it's a complex case, they know that it's going to take them a year, 2 years to get to trial. They plead guilty so they can get out and get on with their lives, and hopefully they'll get time served or a shorter sentence than they will waiting to go to trial. And and they're saying, well, you mean innocent people plead guilty? And they said that's exactly what we're saying. This was the public defenders in that state. I can't recall which state it was, but it was quite an interesting. Especially in the situation I was in, it was quite an interesting thing to watch, especially where I was sitting in Pahrump, Nevada. And there's a real problem. Right. And the January 6 people are getting the same treatment that the Bundy crowd got, and the rest, if not worse. And probably not facing as much jail time. And it's just that's what happens when you have a Department of Justice that doesn't seek justice. I mean, it should be Department of something, but justice isn't it. They should go up there and take a chisel and carve justice off the front of that building and put something else there, and because it's certainly anything but just.
Yeah.
And what they do and their tactics of extortion. Extorting people to accept plea agreements to protect family or friends or whatever it happens to be, just so they don't get drawn into those insane freaking charges or whatever times in jail waiting for a prison waiting. Because when you're in prison, they say you're innocent until proven guilty. That is an absolute lie. That's an absolute lie, because these people who are, I guarantee, in January 6th who are indicted and they're holding in prison right now in those jails, they're in a holding facility, and they are treated just like a convicted prisoner. Their phone time, their mail is read. Their mail they read out. They can't seal their envelopes. They're in units with a bunch of other prisoners. Murderers, could be rapists, child molesters. Well, it doesn't matter. They're in the exact same position as a convicted felon. And that's how they're treated. They're handcuffed, they're strip searched, they're searched, they're wiretapped, their phone calls are all listened to, and the prosecution listens to those calls too. And they say they don't, but they do. Right. And even when you're talking to your attorney. So it's there's a lot to it. And this January 6th thing is it kind of gets the media just throws out little chum, if you will, about the insurrectionists, because they use that term, so then everybody will call them insurrectionists, which is already a criminal type of mindset, you would think.
Yeah, they're already judging them as guilty.
Yeah, it's exactly right. I know in the Bundy cases, the judge came out and called everybody in on the case co-conspirators in front of the jury.
Right.
It's like, well, wait a minute. You've already made judgment.
Yeah.
Isn't that for the jury to do? I mean, you're supposed to be the arbitrator of the truth, right? Of fairness, and yet you're calling them co-conspirators. So there was a conspiracy. What was the conspiracy? Oh, that's what you're trying to prove.
Right.
That's what the federal government uses is conspiracy charges.
Yeah.
If they can't get anything else, they get a conspiracy. And they get people on a felony. And I'll tell you, like Stuart Rhodes.
It's amazing how the government loves conspiracies. They just hate it when the public mentions about the conspiracies of the government.
That's exactly right. There's no such thing, right? There's no such thing when it comes to that. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, and I've said this before myself, is the biggest conspiracy theorists are the Department of Justice. Right. And because they prosecute them all. I mean, look, most of the indictments have it attached to it. And they're easier for them to not have to prove.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff they convict people of, they don't prove.
Exactly.
And, people are in prison for collecting rainwater out west. And people would say, oh, that's not true. Oh, it's absolutely true.
It is absolutely true. It is illegal in multiple states to collect rainwater.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so what we seek in justice in January 6th, Crowder's trying to shine the light on that the lies that are being put out. Because, I mean, the plain speak, honest speak is that the government's lying about it. And Congress, there's a number in Congress that are liars and they're lying about it. They're dishonest. They're bearing false witness, bearing false testimony. For those who believe in the Bible, bearing false witness is breaking one of the commandments. That's dangerous. Mm-hmm. And if you can't win your argument on the truth, then you're on the wrong side of it.
Right.
You're on the wrong side of you're on the wrong side of the argument. And I feel for those families right now, what they're going through on the January 6th, because there are people who didn't even go into the Capitol, I've heard, that are being held still. Yep. And when the police open the door and say, oh, come on in, the Capitol Police open the door for you to come in, you think, well, that's law enforcement. It's okay to go in.
Right. Sounds like entrapment to me.
Well, I'll tell you something. In the Bundy cases, the judge couldn't get an indictment until one of the Bundys or one of their supporters opened up the gate for the cattle to come out.
Right.
So when the Bureau of Land Management left, for those who don't know what went on, this will fill them in at some point on this, is the sheriffs, the county sheriffs gave the Bundy family, a bunch of them, a ride up to where the cattle were. The Bureau of Land Management pulled off, and then they asked, well, when do you guys want to open the gate? And so one of their aunts, I think it was, went over and opened the gate, and everybody filmed it. And then the prosecutor then went to the judge, and then the judge gave out the indictments.
Jesus.
Yeah, and that's how that was set up. That was the critical thing. If she hadn't opened that gate, they wouldn't have been able to get any indictments. And even though the indictments were a lie anyways.
Right.
And but
same thing that's going on with January 6th, essentially.
Huh?
Same thing that's going on with January 6th at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, and what they're hoping is to get people to turn on each other, right? And because that's what they typically do in a plea agreement is they try to write something. They call it a proffer. They try to put something in there to drag somebody else into a guilt column. And so if you don't read your plea agreement carefully and then take all that stuff out of it when you sign it, then you might be unwittingly, you could be unwittingly, some intentionally because they're afraid, is bearing false witness against somebody else who didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And and that's saving your neck, right? Putting somebody else's in the news, right? Because you don't want to suffer the punishment that you're putting the next guy in harm's way to suffer.
Right.
And it's a shame. I mean, if you can't trust our Department of Justice, how's any of it work?
Right. Right. Because at the end of the day, that's where it's supposed to stop.
Right. Yeah. Because you don't care how the truth works out as long as it's the truth.
Right.
That's their job, is to get to the truth, not to get to a conviction, but to get to the truth. And maybe nobody's guilty. Maybe nobody did anything wrong, but at least now everybody knows. And it doesn't matter if you're a left progressive or a conservative on the right. Is you deserve justice. Yeah. I mean, they shouldn't be able to fabricate testimony, false testimony against you or lock you up. We're supposed to, according to our Constitution, we're supposed to be safe in our papers, right, and within our homes and stuff. That doesn't happen at all anymore.
Right.
And you're an open book to them to take whatever it is that they want to take and twist it and turn it, because they change the meanings of words, into something that it's not, and then prosecute you for it.
Yep.
And it's very, very dangerous, and more dangerous. Even the people who are aligned with it think, well, it's okay because they're going after, say, conservatives, we'll just say, or after they're going after the MAGA people, right?
Yeah.
January 6th. It's okay. Well, what if Trump got reelected in the next election, next presidential, and he decided to go after the left? Right? Would it be okay for him to fabricate information and charges against you or those supporters and lock him up merely because he doesn't agree with them? It's not. And our Constitution, there's a lot of things I don't like that it allows to happen.
Right.
But it's how it works.
Yeah.
And people, even God gave man the freedom of choice to make choices, good choices or bad choices.
Right.
But he didn't give them the authority to lie about it.
Right.
And put others in harm's way. That's where he drew the line with the commandments, and a lot of them is you want to mess yourself up, you mess yourself up, but don't take somebody else with you.
Right.
And unfortunately, is our government is so really entirely corrupted. I don't really know how we fix it. I mean, I still vote because it's the peaceful way to try to change things, and but to what effect at times is it makes you question when you see some of these people who are in there just lying, or you hear political ads where they're lying.
Yeah, I think the best way to begin to fix it is to do not just what we're doing now, but what the other people that we're reacting to, the other people that are doing, that are building content, create community, create a localized voice that isn't mainstream media, and develop platforms in which our subscribers, our followers have a platform and a voice to also vent. So that way there is more of a singular mind that isn't, you're creating groups, you're creating more singular groups versus all these divided groups that don't know what's good. And then know you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right.
I had put out a post about McConnell, and because he cut funding to General Bolduc up here and through one of his PACs in New Hampshire. He's running for the Senate, and also he's going out. I forgot how to say her name. It's like Chewbacca up in Alaska. He's funding Murkowski, who is an avid anti-Trumper, obviously,
right.
And actually she's an establishment rhino. Is what I did is I put out a post about his corruption and his China connections and such. And he's a Republican. I mean, he's a minority leader of the Senate, minority leader. And a fellow asked me, he goes, that being said, how do you fix it? I said, well, how you fix it is you send good people to the Senate, especially in both House and Senate, but in McConnell's case, because he's in the Senate, and that won't reappoint him and re-elect him as Senate Majority Leader, because he's got 4 more years.
Right.
And you take his power away, and he'll either resign early and try to give it to somebody else who's like him, and or he'll ride it out, and he probably won't run again. And that's how you do it. Is you've got to strip their power away, because that's what they're afraid of, is losing power, and that's power over us, because they're making billions of dollars off of us. And I mean, name the poor congressman or woman or senator or a male or female that went in without a pot to urinate in, and when they leave after a career in there, who isn't rich?
Correct.
And,
exactly.
Most of them are.
Well, guys, thank you for hanging out with us. Like and subscribe, comment on other videos you would like us to react to. When I check the description, if I get a Patreon link and an email, you can also email us to send us other videos or content that you guys feel should be covered. Talk to you guys later.
Simplify.